Brittle Planet listeners. This is Eric Peterson, quarantining from Salt Lake City. And today I have the honor to be joined by the one and only Don Dokken. Don, how are you doing today?
Doing good, Eric.
Good.
Just got home, actually. You called me at the right time. I was just coming from rescuing yet another dog.
Oh, no. One of your own or somebody else's?
I didn't think I'd have any. I got 3 big dogs already. And now we just went and rescued another German Shepherd. So it's a little crazy around here. They're all trying to get used to each other.
So where are you quarantining from today?
New Mexico.
Nice. That's a good place to be quarantining from.
Yeah, I've been done with quarantine for months. You know, I literally haven't left the house hardly. When I do, I wear a mask, and I'm being smart. Not like all these other idiots that don't wear masks.
Yeah.
They're not listening. They're not paying attention. You know, Japan is always... I remember going to Japan in the 80s, 83, 84, and remembering a lot of people wearing masks. And I used to say, why is everybody wearing a mask? And they'd say, well, it's flu season. So the Japanese have always been very proactive. And the proof's in the pudding. They got the lowest COVID in the whole world right now.
Exactly.
Then we had like 10 deaths in a month. We're getting and like a couple hundred new cases, and you know, here we got 5,000 and 10,000 a day, you know, in cities. So I wish everybody else would take heart and pay attention. They said if we all did what the Japanese did, we'd have this under control in like 2 months.
Oh, I believe it.
And nobody's. I think it's funny when it says, you can catch something, it can kill you. Yeah, but I want to go out to a bar with my friends and have some drinks. I want to go to the beach and be in a swimming pool with 1,000 people with no masks on.
Yeah.
It's worth it for me to take the chance of getting deathly ill. Not to me.
No.
Even though I'm leaving tomorrow, we have a show Friday in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
An outdoor festival, social distancing, one of the first ones to experiment. The next day we fly to Arkansas, another outdoor festival headlining, social distancing. They're like 6,000 seaters, and they're going to allow in like 3,000.
Okay, that's good.
So we'll see how it goes. It's a little spooky. I don't worry about the shows. I worry about all those plane flights.
Exactly. That's the scary part. So you've got...
Yeah, I don't believe... Go ahead.
You got this new project coming out called The Lost Songs from 1978 to 81. Tell us a little bit about how this happened. I mean, were you getting ready for a garage sale and just found these bad boys, or what?
Exactly. I bought another house. I've always lived in L.A. I still have my house there, but I bought a 13-acre ranch in New Mexico and a house, and I decided to finally clean my garage out after 20 years. All this garbage in there. It's just a junkyard of stuff that didn't even know what was in there. So we started clearing everything out to bring some stuff up to the other house, and I got a truck and basically just threw 90% of everything away, and then literally tore like the end of it all. I found a big plastic tub with a lid on it. It was really heavy. And I opened it up, and here was all these reel-to-reel tapes. And I was thinking, reel-to-reel? I haven't used reel-to-reel in 15 years. You know, it's all digital now.
Yeah.
So I was I was interested, so I didn't even have something to play it back on. I had to go find a friend's studio that still had an old 2-inch analog machine to put them on.
Wow.
And I just put them on, and I started playing all these tapes, and I went, holy crap, this is all the songs I was working on in my 20s and when I was sneaking into studios for free recording time, and I never finished these songs. We just didn't finish them, you know?
Yeah.
One of them I did, Broken Heart. That was my first single I ever did when I was like 25.
Okay.
It's on a 45 single, and they're actually re-releasing the original artwork.
Oh, nice.
I did that in Redondo Beach. And then, you know, when I was in Germany, touring Germany in 79, I met Michael Wagner. He had a studio, and I played this club every night till about midnight. And after the club, we were done, we'd just walk across the way, and we'd go into his studio and do like bootleg recording in the middle of the night. And so I found those tapes because I saw a box and it said Hamburg, 1979. I went, what the hell is this? And there's some live recordings of me playing in a club, and it actually, for being live, sounds really good.
So that's the last song on the album is the live recording, right?
Yeah, Liar. I think it's Liar.
Yeah.
Or Prisoner.
Prisoner.
There's two live songs.
Yeah.
Liar and Prisoner. Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of laugh at my solo because my solo goes on for like 2 minutes.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is it all you playing the guitar on it? Because it's not that you're not known for your guitar playing to a lot of us, but the guitar on it's amazing.
Thanks. Yeah, that's all me playing guitar and singing. There was no George. It was before George and Jeff and Mick. We were a three-piece. I was the lead singer and the lead guitar player, and Juan Crucier, who went on later on to Rat, he was the bass player. And we had a guy on drums named Greg Pecca, and we were a three-piece.
Wow.
Yeah. I know a lot of people say, oh, I didn't know you played guitar. I say, well, how do you think we wrote these songs?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a lot of people thought that it was kind of like an Eddie Van Halen thing, like George wrote the music and I wrote the lyrics, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I knew that you played guitar because I've seen you play guitar. I just didn't know to what extent you have played.
Yeah, I mean, actually, when I listen to my solo from, 35 years ago, my solo playing, I go, well, I was definitely a better guitar player then, because I stopped playing for years live. George just started doing all the guitar work, so my chops, I guess you could say, went downhill.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of the recordings are better than others. Like Broken Heart's a great song, but the quality isn't as good as some of the others. That's the first song I ever recorded in a recording studio. Okay. Wow.
And it came out on a 45 single, and that's why the quality is not good, because it was pressed on a vinyl 45 record. I only had one copy, and it's old, you know. And the problem was I didn't have the master to that. I only had the record, the 45 record at 45 speed. So it didn't sound good. So I just EQ'd it the best I could, made it the best I could, tried to get the high end back and the bass, but you can tell it was recorded in the 70s,
But some of it doesn't sound like that.
If you go back and listen to a lot of the records in the 70s, a lot of them sounded like that.
Oh yeah,
kind of muddy. It wasn't high tech digital then.
No. But some of the recordings sound amazing still, and your voice, sounds fresh, just like you're just a fresh young lad. And I mean, did you when you were redoing any of these, did you polish them up, or what did you do with some of them?
No, I had to leave the vocals alone.
Oh, okay.
Because my voice is so high and trebly, and it sounds like a young me. And if I tried to punch in some of the lyrics, the sound of my voice sounds totally different now.
Yeah.
I'm getting old.
Yeah.
So I had to leave all the vocals alone.
Okay. So it's funny too, because you listen to the songs and you put them in context of when they were actually recorded, and they're really heavy for their time. But that's not what was popular at the time in the U.S., So it's really, when you think back on it, it's pretty cutting edge.
It was I think it was cutting edge. That's why I did it, because that's why I went to Germany in '79, because, the only band that really broke out of the scene in Hollywood in '77, I think, was when Van Halen's album came out, or '78. It was '77, '78. And they broke out. We were playing the Whiskey a lot with Van Halen. I was playing the Starwood with Quiet Riot. They hadn't been signed yet. They still had Randy Rose in the band. And then I think after Van Halen got signed, everybody in Hollywood thought that the record companies were going to start signing everybody. And then all of a sudden, everything changed. And it was Blondie and Depeche Mode and Devo, and all of a sudden, it was all this new wave stuff.
Yeah.
And the club stopped booking hard rock bands that was like Dokken, that were heavier and more cutting edge. And so I had a chance meeting with someone that owned a club in Germany, and he said, I know all the club owners in Germany. If you get yourself some plane tickets, I'll get you some equipment. You could come over here and play, because I think the German fans would appreciate your music more, because they're more like, Scorpions and Judas Priest and Saxon, and all those bands.
Yeah, exactly.
Except, so those bands, and that's funny, when I went in 79, those bands weren't even popular in America.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw those bands when I came home a year later, and they were playing the Whiskey, a small club.
Yeah.
Nobody knew who Judas Priest was. I bought Judas Priest, their second album, which was called Sad Wings of Destiny, and it blew my mind, because they had nothing to do with the American scene. The British rock scene was totally different than the American rock scene. The American bands were more commercial, bands like Journey and stuff like that. And, that wasn't going on in Europe. It was more like Priest and Saxon and Accept and, and King Diamond. So that's why I went there in the first place, because I figured we're kind of screwed now. They're not booking hard rock bands in LA. And then it all came back. Everybody has all these documentaries about, the rock scene, heyday, drugs, rock and roll, but that didn't really start happening again till like 81, 82.
Yeah. So when you were recording these early songs, what were influentially, what were you going off? Because to me, some of it sounds a little bit like Deep Purple and some of that stuff. But I was curious as to what your influence was when you were recording these.
Well, as far as my guitar solo, I was definitely heavily influenced by Ritchie Blackmore.
Yeah.
So I was listening to, Smoke in the Water and Burn. And so that influenced my guitar scales, my guitar style on the solos. But I was listening to Saxon, I liked their simple, straight ahead, 3-chord rock. And I liked bands like it. And then I heard Accept, and I went, wow, this band's heavy.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool. But I was listening to bands like that, So that was my influences.
Well,
Purple, and all those bands that were around in the 70s. I was even listening to the Allman Brothers,
Yeah. Because you could see from these recordings, like I said, how you could tell that this would not fit in with the bands like you described, like Blondie, Depeche Mode, Devo, and that kind of stuff. You could see how that in LA at that time, people would just say, "Eh."
No, it was dead in the water, man.
Yeah.
And it was popular, for like 2 years. Like when I was playing with Van Halen and stuff at the Whiskey, we were warming up to them. We played with a lot of shows of Van Halen.
Yeah.
And a lot of shows with Quiet Riot, when Randy was in the band, and all those other rock bands. And then it just went away. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, I'm trying to call clubs, so we could play. And it was almost like, oh, Dokken, yeah, you guys, that's not the scene now, So we were dead in the water.
Yeah. And so you mentioned these early influences, but listening to this music, you can actually hear, as you progressed, you can hear what songs would sound like, how Tooth and Nail and how Under Lock and Key, how they progressed from this stuff, which was really cool.
I agree. You can hear on like Step Into the Light and No Answer, you can hear the way I was writing by then, like in 1980, how my style of writing the song kind of transcended into Breaking the Chains and Tooth and Nail.
Exactly. And it's funny because I remember as a kid, buying Tooth and Nail, and I got it off the Columbia House for the six cassettes for a penny or whatever that you got, and then you got them mailed to you every month after that. You remember that?
God, man, I remember that. You signed up and you got new music every month.
Yeah, and I got Tooth and Nail was one of them, and Helix was another one. I don't remember what Helix album it was, but it was a Helix album, and then there was a couple other albums, but...
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, that's how I remember. I think I had a prescription. I think that's the first time I heard Dora Pesh.
Yeah.
Or actually, they were called Warlock.
Warlock, yeah.
And that's where my guitar player, who's been in the band now 22 years, John Levin, he was the guitar player in Warlock.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Yeah.
and then he played in Warlock till about in the mid 80s, and the same thing happened. Things were kind of going sideways, and then he quit playing guitar and became an attorney.
Oh, okay.
And he retired. He retired like all through the 90s when the grunge thing came in.
I don't
And
blame
he
him.
said, I'm not into grunge. You know, it's not my thing. So he just became an attorney. And then he ended up joining the band after Red left.
Nice. So you got the new album coming out. You've got you've got a few shows coming up. How are you holding up, Don? How are things going?
I'm on the mend. I mean, I guess it's a positive thing. No, I can't say it's positive, but you know, my surgery didn't go well.
Yeah.
I had the surgery in November 6th, and you know, everything should have came out perfectly. You know, I operated on my spine. I supposedly went to the best doctor there was, at Cedars-Sinai Spine Institute, and he was the guy to do this surgery. And you know, and I come out of it, and my right arm's paralyzed. And I'm like, shit. So they said, don't worry, it'll get better. Give it a few months. You know, your arm will start moving again. And it's been 7 months, and I can move my fingers about an inch.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have high hopes. I'm trying to stay positive, but I'd say my guitar playing days are definitely over.
Really?
So I can't hold a pick. I can't even sign my name. You know, my hand just doesn't move. It's just paralyzed. So they say some people it happens and the nerves grow back, and sometimes it's called reperfusion, where they cut the nerves or bump my spinal cord, and it could take a year and a half. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, but you know, the good thing is I can still sing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And so do you know how this injury happened, that you needed to have surgery?
Nobody knows.
Really?
I was getting these symptoms for like 2 years. Like, for instance, like I'd be riding my Harley, and I kept thinking there was something wrong with my clutch because it seemed like it was harder and harder to pull it in.
Okay.
And then after I'd ride my Harley for about an hour, and I'm working the throttle, my hands started to go to sleep. You know, and then I started dropping my guitar pick, and then I started kind of walking like I was drunk, like my equilibrium was off.
Yeah.
You know, and I felt like it was always like my legs were unsteady, like I just didn't feel steady, and I just didn't know what was going on. So I was getting epidurals, and they were giving me shots in my back, and yada, yada, yada. And finally they said, you should do an MRI. And they said, hey, I hate to tell you, but your spinal cord is like completely compressed, like the bones have collapsed onto your spinal cord. And they said, you can do surgery now, or you can wait another year or two. But the more you wait, the more your nerves are going to die. And, you know, you're going to get weaker and weaker. I didn't plan on being paralyzed.
Yeah.
But, you know, but they said, you know, if you had a little minor car accident, or if you fall off your Harley, or if you're on a ladder, you took a bad fall, you could be paralyzed. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
So they advised me to get surgery, and I put it off for another 6 months to do the tour. But then I stopped. I just couldn't play anymore.
Yeah.
My fingers were weak, both my hands. So I had the surgery, and how can I put it? I drew the short straw.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the guy says, we don't know what happened. You know, why your arm's paralyzed. We don't know. Everything went perfectly. You know, I've talked to a lot of surgeons, and they just said, we don't know, you know, what happened. You're 1 in 500. And I'm like, that's just great.
Yeah.
So there's nothing I can do. It's depressing because I'm right-handed.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can't hold a fork. I have to do everything with my left hand, drive with my left hand, wipe my ass with my left hand, you know. And my hand's very swollen, and my fingers are very puffy. And so I'm just going to try to stay positive and hope in another 6 or 7 months I start getting some movement back in my fingers.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting.
But then the COVID hit. So COVID hit. We couldn't tour anyway. And lucky for me, when we wrote Broken Bones over 4 years ago, I had 7 or 8 songs that I played guitar on when my hands were fine. And I'd written 7 or 8 songs and recorded them. and they just went by the wayside.
Okay.
So at least we already had this huge back catalog of songs for the new record.
Nice. That's interesting that they can't figure out where it happened. I mean, me personally, I kind of wondered if you fell off that semi driving down the middle of the Sunset Strip or something, and that could have had something to do with it.
No, I mean, it could have been. You know, I studied martial arts for 25 years. I used to go to Korea once a year and study with Grandmaster Kim, who was the head 8th degree black belt, who was like 75 years old at the time. And I'd go to Seoul, Korea every year and go to a dojo and study. And I had a teacher here, another master in LA. You know, and I got kicked and dropped and knocked to the ground. And plus I rode a Harley since I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
Choppers. I was riding choppers. And that's hard on your spine. But they said, yeah, it's not normal where my injury was. They said, we usually see this if you were rear-ended by a car at 50 miles an hour.
Okay.
Or you were in a bad car accident.
Yeah.
And they said, you know, but I saw the MRI. You don't have to be a doctor to look at the MRI and you see your spinal cord, you know, and it gets skinnier and skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. And then you couldn't see it at all. But the problem was it was very low down, C6, 7, T1. It's between my shoulder blades, so they had to crack open my whole back.
Oh.
Very invasive, 5.5-hour surgery. And everything should have came out all right, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So I want to get back on the road and play because it gets a little depressing when you're just in lockdown with COVID, you know, like playing my guitar. I can't even play my guitar anymore.
Wow.
It sucks.
Yeah. So looking back, I mean, now that you've got all these recordings out, is there any more? And was there any of the songs that you heard when you played those songs on that reel-to-reel that you went, hey, I remember that song?
Yeah, everything was like that on every song.
Oh, was it? Okay.
I was like, I remember this song, but I couldn't remember when I did it.
Yeah.
I remember there's one song called Hit and Run, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, I'm singing it, that's my voice, but I'm listening to the lyrics, and I'm like, this doesn't sound like something I would write. You know, so I was a little confused. I'm like, this doesn't sound like my style of music. The guitar part sounded like me, but the lyrics and melody just was not my style. So I'm like, I don't get it. So I called Juan Crucier, and I said, hey, Juan, you remember we were in Germany? We went in the studio with Michael Wagner and cut like 7 or 8 songs, and one of them was called Hit and Run. And he said, yeah, I wrote that. I said, you did? He said, yeah, I wrote it. You sang it? And I said, well, you wrote it. So that's why I don't get it.
Oh, okay. All right.
It didn't sound like me. So he wrote the song, and I think I wrote the chorus. He wrote the lyrics. And I said, you wouldn't have to have a copy of it, would you? I mean, 35 years later. And he reached out to Michael Wagner, and Michael keeps everything.
Oh, wow.
And Michael says, yeah, I have a copy of that somewhere on a hard drive. It'll take me forever to find it.
Yeah.
And Michael found a copy of it.
Wow.
There was a version on YouTube. There was a lot of these songs are on YouTube.
Yeah.
I don't know how they got on there because I was in control of the demos. How people got copies of these demos, I don't know. And they put them on YouTube. But you can tell they're like a cassette.
Yeah.
Of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. And they all sounded like shit, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So Hit and Run sounded terrible. You know, a couple of these songs didn't sound good. So I just got lucky that I found a lot of these songs and was able to remix them. Some of these songs were put out in the 80s on some bootleg album.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had downtime. Everyone's in quarantine. I figured the band can't play. We can't rehearse. So I just went in my studio and started doing this project. And then I finished it and went back to working on the new record.
Well, my last question I have for you is tell me a song by Dokken, by title or by content, that you feel like best describes the state of the world as we know it today.
Today?
Yeah.
The song we did on Broken Bones, my last record I did, there's a song on there called Empire.
Okay.
And that song, the lyrics on Empire totally are about what's going on now.
Really? Okay.
End of the world. It's talking about dictators and people who shouldn't be running countries. And it's called, we did a video of it actually. It's called Empire.
Okay.
And I think that song was very reflective of what's going on now. Now, right now I'm writing lyrics and I've got plenty to write about because the world's going to hell in a handbasket.
Yes, it is.
It's a mess between the George Floyd, all the massive protests that sparked, people marching with no masks on, no social distancing. The COVID went through the roof. You know, you got 10,000 people a day in New York. I mean, that's a lot of people that are getting sick, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's our fault, partially.
Oh,
we
yeah.
have a president that doesn't wear a mask and tells people you don't need to wear a mask anymore, and he tells people you don't need to get tested. I disagree with that.
I agree.
Now, if you look at Japan, any video of people walking downtown Tokyo, everybody has a mask on.
Mm-hmm.
And their COVID is like 7 people a month, 8 people a month. I mean, they're deaths. I mean, they're the lowest in the world is Japan on the COVID thing because everybody wears a mask. They just comply. But when people march side by side, 10,000 people with no mask on, what do you think's going to happen?
Exactly.
You know, or going to bars. It's more important for me to go to a bar and go to a club and hang out with my friends in the pool, and I don't want to wear a mask. I'll take my chances. Really? And they end up in the hospital.
I compare the non-wearing mask people to the people that fought in the late 70s and early 80s about not wearing a seatbelt.
Right. I'm not wearing my seatbelt, and I'm not going to pay the ticket.
Yep.
You know, they didn't understand that you only have to hit something going 25 miles an hour and you're going to go through the windshield.
Exactly.
But people fought it, and we have the First Amendment, and you know, we have our right to do what we want to do. If we want to carry a gun or if we want to not wear a seatbelt, it's about our rights. But then again, it's about what about the rights of the other people you're infecting? Don't they have rights?
And you're infringing upon them.
Yeah, you're hurting them.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I'm going on a plane tomorrow. I got 2 connections. And then I go to Virginia, and the next day I got 2 more connections. That's a lot of flying.
Yeah.
And if I get on that plane and people are not wearing masks, I'm going to go ballistic.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
I'm going to say, hey, put your damn mask on, you know?
So I was going to mention to you that I came up with 2 songs that I can think of, and ironically, they're back-to-back songs, and I was going to ask you, content-wise, if they meant anything. One was Will the Sun Rise, and then the other one was Till the Living End.
Exactly. Both those songs, I would agree, are very relevant what's going on now.
Yeah.
Till the Living End is, I get it. And the other song too, you know.
So those were 2 songs that I knew from my catalog of Dokken stuff that I went, oh, those songs, you could have wrote them with a totally something different in mind, but to me, those were 2 songs that I thought fit. So
lyrically, they're very relevant. So who's to know why?
Yeah.
I probably wrote them during the Iraqi war or something.
Exactly. Well, Don, I appreciate your time. It's been amazing to talk to you. I mean, I'm a lifelong Dokken fan, so it's
thank you.
I'm excited for these recordings. I'm excited for everybody else to hear them. So it'll be fun for the world to hear the prequel to Paris is Burning and Alone Again and all that. So.
Right. I mean, you know, I'm not going to defend the record. If people say, oh, Broken Heart doesn't sound very good, or this song sounds a little muddy, and yeah, they got to remember that was over 35 years ago.
But I think if you listen to it in the right sense and you say, this is early Dokken, you will really appreciate it because you'll go, oh, this is where these other songs came from. So.
Yeah, you can see the progression of me being in my early 20s, you know, just starting out, not really knowing what the hell I'm doing.
Yep.
You know, I'd never been there since when I wrote, that was the first time I ever been in a studio.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know anything. I was right behind the ears.
Yep.
So, yeah, I think it's a good peek into the progression of how we started and how we ended up.
Yeah, it's like a prequel, like a Star Wars prequel.
It's a prequel.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure.
So, well, thanks again, Don, and I appreciate it. And everybody go pick this up, and we'll talk to you soon, Don.
Take care, be safe. Let's really pray that they come up with a vaccine, and next year everybody will be back on tour again. I've talked to all my friends and every band on the planet that I'm friends with, so like everybody from Whites to the Motley Crues, all these big stadium tours, Metallica, they're all canceled, and everybody's, you know, like climbing the walls, you know, wanting to go out and play.
Yeah, and we're all wanting to go watch too. So
yeah, and I'm really, you know, honestly, I'm shocked that I'm doing 2 shows this week, and I keep to get a text any minute saying the show's canceled.
Yeah.
But I'm on a plane at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we're playing an outdoor venue for thousands of people for 2 days in a row. So let's just, I'm just going to be very, very careful.
Yep.
That's all.
Yep.
Well,
All
right, boss.
Take care and be safe.
I will.
All right. Thanks, Don.